Hey, welcome to Rocking with Nostalgia. Today we're traveling back to the old school gaming world of CRT televisions where we're discussing underrated Sega Genesis classics. So grab your rocking chair and let's get started. Sega! Thanks again for joining me today. If this is your first time, please subscribe. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Sega Genesis underrated classics today. The late 80s and early 90s was a great time for video gaming. You had kind of the tail end of the NES. The Super Nintendo would soon be launching in North America in 1991. But squished in between there was the release of the Sega Genesis, one of my all-time favorite consoles. I still remember when I got my Sega Genesis. It was from Hill's Department Stores, if any of you remember that place. And I remember walking in and seeing only one system left on the shelf. And this was the time when Sega began to pack in Sonic the Hedgehog as a bundle. And I also think during that time that the price of the system might have dropped too. So I'm sure the popularity probably took a spike at that point. So anyways, we see one system left, and if you know my mom, she is the most friendly, non-confrontational person you'll meet. But she took a somewhat of a fast dash over and grabbed that system in front of some other lady. Now, it wasn't a fighting situation or anything like that, but still, to see that from my mom, something that I had never seen before, that's going to be stuck in my memory for as long as I live. So anyways, I remember getting home, putting in Sonic, and immediately the graphics just blew my mind, especially the background. Seeing the depth now and the waterfalls in the background of Sonic was truly spectacular. So it was from that point forward that the Genesis became one of my all-time favorite systems. And today we're going to look at 10 underrated Genesis classics. These are ones, in my opinion, that just don't get talked about as much as other classics you hear about. So sit back, grab your rocking chair, and let's get started. Developed and published by Sega and originally released in arcades in 1988, Gain Ground came to the Genesis in 1991 and is a unique blend of action and strategy that often flies under the radar in discussions about classic Sega titles. At its core, Gain Ground is a strategic action game where players must navigate through a series of increasingly challenging levels, rescuing hostages and defeating enemies along the way. Rescued hostages are then added to your arsenal of players to choose from, providing additional strategic options to defeat enemies and progress through levels. This diverse roster of characters is what makes Gain Ground truly special, each with their own unique abilities and weapons. From bow and arrow wielding Vikings to futuristic cyborgs and ancient warriors, Gain Ground offers a wide range of characters to choose from, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Strategically selecting the right combination of characters is key to success in this game. Gain Ground features over 50 levels spread across different time periods and environments, keeping the gameplay fresh and exciting. However, don't let the colorful visuals fool you. This game can be incredibly challenging, especially in the later stages where enemies become more relentless and obstacles more unforgiving. Speaking from experience, patience and strategy are your best friends in Gain Ground. Take your time to study enemy patterns, utilize each character's abilities effectively, and don't hesitate to retreat and regroup when things get tough. Gain Ground may not be as well known as some other Sega classics, but it's definitely a game worth checking out for fans of action and strategy alike. It's one of my all-time favorite Genesis games, and I honestly can't think of any other game that fills the same itch that Gain Ground does. This game has been included in multiple Genesis compilation collections, including the most recent Sega Genesis Classics collection that's available on modern consoles. The Switch version routinely goes on sale for as little as $6, so pick it up if you get a chance. Gain Ground is absolutely a classic. Developed by System Soft and published by Renovation Products in 1991, Master of Monsters is a strategic masterpiece that often gets overlooked in discussions about classic strategy titles. However, in my opinion, it stands toe-to-toe with any of the genre heavyweights. Master of Monsters is a turn-based strategy game where players take on the role of powerful wizards commanding armies of mythical creatures. Your goal? conquer enemy territories, expand your influence, and become the ultimate master of monsters. What sets Master of Monsters apart is its deep and engaging gameplay mechanics. Players must carefully manage resources, strategically deploy units, and exploit terrain advantages to outmaneuver and overpower their opponents. Another standout feature of Master of Monsters is its robust creature customization system. As you progress through the game, you'll recruit new creatures, level them up, and evolve them into more powerful forms, adding a layer of depth and strategy to every battle. Players have the choice of either playing a single map with customizable options including the number of players, the master of each army, number of available magic points, and more, or they can try to make their way through one of the 2 available and extremely challenging campaigns. Each master has a unique set of monsters to summon and move around the map with an effort to capture towers and defeat other monsters and eventually defeat the master. Master of Monsters requires both cunning strategy and adaptability. Experiment with different creature combinations, utilize spells and specials abilities wisely, and always keep a watchful eye on your opponent's movements. If I had a way to calculate the number of hours spent playing games in my life, I would bet that Master of Monsters comes in at number 1. My friends and I would spend so much time playing this. Single maps could take many, many hours to complete. And finally, I must mention the incredible original soundtrack. Absolutely stunning. I still routinely listen to the soundtrack while doing other activities such as writing this script. Master of Monsters is as iconic as they come.
Pull my finger. No way. Come on, Beavis. Pull it. Okay. That was cool.
Developed by Radical Entertainment and published by Viacom New Media in 1994, Beavis and Butt-head for the Sega Genesis brings the hilariously crude humor of the MTV animated series straight into your living room. Beavis and Butt-head is a side-scrolling platformer adventure game where players control the titular slackers as they embark on a quest to score concert tickets. Players navigate through various locations, solve puzzles, and interact with characters while embodying the iconic duo's trademark humor and antics. The story is simple, yet seems right out of an episode of the TV show. The dynamic duo purchase tickets for an upcoming Gwar concert, but of course, things don't go as planned. Cue Mr. Anderson's dog, who steals, eats, and vomits up the tickets before being run over by a lawn-mowing Mr. Anderson, and the pieces are scattered throughout Highland, requiring Beavis and Butt-head to track them down. From causing chaos in Highland High, getting into mischief at Burger World, or to wreaking havoc in the streets, it's your job to guide them through their misadventures and recover the ticket pieces. What sets Beavis and Butt-head apart is its irreverent humor and faithful adaptation of the TV show's iconic characters and settings. Whether you're trying to score with chicks, causing mayhem at the mall, or unleashing chaos in Mr. Anderson's yard, there's never a dull moment. The game's humor is absolutely spot on. From the witty banter between Beavis and Butt-head to the hilarious situations they find themselves in, every moment is guaranteed to have you laughing. The graphics look spot on to the TV show. It's like stepping into an episode, and fans of the series will really appreciate that. Little graphical features such as Butt-head's gummy grin becoming present as he begins a mad dash is just one of the many examples. There was also a Super Nintendo version of the game that was more of a standard side-scroller and didn't quite reach the heights of the Genesis version, so stick with this version. So if you're in the mood for some retro humor and classic 90s nostalgia, do yourself a favor and fire up Beavis and Butt-head. Whether you're a diehard fan or just looking for a good laugh, this game delivers the goods. Let's take a look at the twisted world of Mutant League Football, a game that takes the rough and tumble action of American football and cranks it up to 11. Developed and published by Electronic Arts in 1993, Mutant League Football is not your typical sports game. The game was designed using the John Madden Football 93 engine and features a mix of bone-crushing tackles, deadly traps, and gruesome fatalities. It's a gridiron showdown like no other. Mutant League Football is a parody of American football set in a post-apocalyptic world where mutants and monsters battle it out on the field. From toxic waste pits to exploding mines, the playing field is littered with deadly hazards that can turn the tide of a game in an instant. What makes Mutant League Football truly special is its over-the-top gameplay and irreverent sense of humor. Players can bribe referees, kill their players through excessively violent methods, push opponents into mines and pits full of lava, and so much more. Killing enough players even causes the opposing team to forfeit. Each player on the team has their own unique personality and will talk trash throughout the game. My favorite character was always Bones Jackson, who was also the star of the animated TV show that aired from 1994 to 1996. With the game using the Madden engine, anyone familiar with that series will be able to jump in and play without any issues. The controls, play selection screen, game mechanics, and navigation of the game will feel very familiar to the Madden series, but with a shiny coat of violence. There's even an option to set how gruesome and gory you want the game to be. Mutant League Football is a blast to play whether you're a diehard football fan or just looking for some outrageous fun. There was a sequel called Mutant League Hockey, which was also great, and a spiritual successor called Mutant Football League, which was released in 2017 and was also a blast to play. So from its bone-crushing tackles to its tongue-in-cheek humor, Mutant League Football is a game that's sure to keep you entertained for hours on end. Let's dive into the colorful world of Columns for the Sega Genesis, a classic puzzle game that's guaranteed to test your reflexes and challenge your mind. Developed and published by Sega in 1990, Columns is a timeless gem that offers addictive gameplay and endless replay value. Columns is a tile-matching puzzle game where players must align falling jewels to create vertical, horizontal, or diagonal lines of 3 or more of the same color. It may sound simple, but as jewels fall faster and faster, the challenge ramps up, testing your speed and strategy to the max. What sets Columns apart is its addictive gameplay and strategic depth. With multiple game modes to choose from, including the classic Flash mode and the more challenging Versus mode, there's always a new puzzle to solve and a new high score to beat. And let's not forget about the game's presentation. With its vibrant colors, smooth animations, and amazing soundtrack, Columns is a visual and auditory treat that's sure to keep you coming back for more. Columns is one of those games that's easy to pick up but hard to put down. Whether you're a puzzle pro or just looking for some casual fun, it's a game that's guaranteed to keep you entertained for hours on end. While Columns was and always has been in the shadow of Tetris, I found it more addicting and spent many hours playing multiplayer against my friends. The soundtrack brings back memories of sitting on the floor only a few feet from the TV screen and having intense competitions with all my buddies. The game is also available on the aforementioned Sega Genesis Classic Collection, so be on the lookout to pick this up on the cheap. Let's hit the asphalt and dive into the high-octane world of Combat Cars. Developed and published by Accolade in 1994, Combat Cars takes the excitement of traditional racing games and adds a hefty dose of firepower and mayhem into the mix. Combat Cars is a vehicular combat racing game where players must navigate through hazardous tracks while armed to the teeth with an arsenal of weapons and power-ups. From machine guns to missiles, there's no shortage of ways to blow your opponents off the road. What sets Combat Cars apart is its adrenaline-pumping gameplay and intense vehicular combat. Whether you're blasting through enemy cars, dodging incoming rockets, or navigating treacherous obstacles, every race is a heart-pounding thrill from start to finish. And let's not forget about the game's customization options. With multiple cars and characters to choose from, each with their own unique stats and abilities, you can customize your ride to suit your playstyle and dominate the competition. Mastering Combat Cars requires both skill and strategy. Keep an eye on your opponents, use power-ups wisely, and always stay one step ahead of the competition. The control of the game can be somewhat tricky to grasp at first. It's very similar to the feel of Super Sprint, so very fast, touchy, and precision is needed, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes a blast. The look of the game is simple, yet effective. The overhead view captures the action, and the graphics are detailed and colorful, with smooth animations and a consistent frame rate. I bought this game after developing an itch for vehicular combat after purchasing the incredible Rock'n'Roll Racing. While Combat Cars doesn't reach the heights of Rock'n'Roll Racing, it does provide a new challenge if you're a fan of the genre. So if you're ready to experience the thrill of high-speed racing and explosive combat, Fire up combat cars, a game that's guaranteed to get your adrenaline pumping and your heart racing. Let's journey through the mean streets of crime-ridden Chicago in Dick Tracy, a game that puts you in the fedora of the legendary detective himself. Developed in just 5 months by Sega Technical Institute and published by Sega in 1991, Dick Tracy brings the iconic comic strip detective to life in a gritty, noir-inspired adventure that's as tough as it is thrilling. While being based on the 1990 movie, it does not follow the same plot and has its own story. Dick Tracy is a side-scrolling action game with elements of detective work and combat. Tracy navigates the foreground by jumping, ducking, and shooting a pistol, while using a Tommy gun to hit enemies and objects in the background, such as windows, fire hydrants, and streetlights. Several of the villains from the comic book and movie appear and are perfectly represented in 16-bit glory. There are a total of 6 stages, with each stage being made up of multiple scenes and a boss battle in the final scene of each stage. In addition, after each stage, there is a bonus round where Tracy shoots targets in a police shooting gallery. The presentation of the game is incredible. With its detailed character sprites, moody environments, and atmospheric soundtrack, Dick Tracy captures the look and feel of the film, immersing players in its world of crime and intrigue while also using comic book style cutscenes interlaced throughout the game. The first time I played Dick Tracy was at my friend's house, who was also my neighbor. I would go over to his house after school to play the game until finally getting it for myself for one Christmas. So if you're a fan of detective stories, action-packed gameplay, or just looking for a taste of old-school noir, give Dick Tracy a try.
In this corner, Evander Holyfield.
Let's step into the ring with Greatest Heavyweights, a game that delivers all the thrills and excitement of the sweet science right to your living room. Developed by Acme Interactive and published by Sega in 1993, Greatest Heavyweights is a sequel to Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing and puts you in the shoes of legendary heavyweight champions. The game is virtually identical to Real Deal Boxing, though it does have a number of significant improvements, including faster gameplay, the addition of many legendary boxers, and better presentation. Greatest Heavyweights is a sports simulation game that captures the intensity and strategy of professional boxing. Players must master the art of jabbing, hooking, and dodging as they face off against a roster of skilled opponents in pursuit of championship gold. The game includes a number of legendary boxers, including the aforementioned Evander Holyfield, plus there's Muhammad Ali, Rocky Marciano, Jack Dempsey, Joe Frazier, Larry Holmes, and Joe Louis, as well as 30 imaginary boxers. The boxing action is great. It provides a very fast and fluid boxing experience, but also provides depth of gameplay that is required to be mastered if you want to excel at this game. Button mashing will not work. From managing your boxer's stamina and health to studying your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, every match requires careful planning and precision to come out on top. Greatest Heavyweights has fantastic presentation qualities about it. With its detailed character sprites, excellent virtual representation of the fighters, fluid animation, and lively commentary, Greatest Heavyweights immerses players in the thrill of the boxing world like no other Sega Genesis game. The game also has a fantastic creative fighter and career mode. Fighters must make their way through the ranks while improving their character's attributes, which includes power, speed, and stamina by winning matches. After each match is won, players can choose from a variety of training methods such as speed bags, weightlifting, and eating a high-protein diet to increase their attributes. Another game that I first played at my neighbor's house, I couldn't wait until I owned a copy myself, and when that day came, I spent many hours with Greatest Heavyweights. So if you're ready to step into the ring and experience the adrenaline-pumping action of professional boxing, give Greatest Heavyweights a try. General Chaos is a game that puts you in command of a squad of fearless fighters in the ultimate battle for supremacy. Developed by Game Refuge Incorporated and published by Electronic Arts in 1994, General Chaos is a single or multiplayer action-oriented real-time strategy game that pits rival generals against each other in fast-paced skirmishes filled with explosions and mayhem. With the lighthearted take on warfare, General Chaos mixes strategic planning and frenetic action, with players commanding their troops to capture enemy territory and secure victory. General Chaos is all about strategic planning and decisive action. Players must lead their squad of soldiers into battle, capturing enemy territory, and securing victory against opposing forces. Before starting each battle, players select a troop of soldiers with options including the assault team, commandos, brute force, or the demolition squad, with each troop having unique characters and different strengths and weaknesses. This diverse roster of soldiers is what sets General Chaos apart, each with their own unique abilities and specialties. From grenadiers to machine gunners and flamethrowers, choosing the right team is crucial to outmaneuvering and outpowering your opponent. Viewing the action from an isometric perspective, players control their team by using a button to cycle through each member and then using the D-pad as a cursor to select where they want to position their soldier. Once positioned, pressing the fire button will fire weapons for all allies at once. Depending on the weapon, some soldiers will be better at close combat, while others better at long distance. Also, if two soldiers on the opposite team get close enough, close combat will begin where players can punch, kick, or block their way to victory. This is another game on the list that has excellent presentation. With its colorful and playful graphics, detailed character sprites, and explosive sound effects, General Chaos immerses players in the chaos of war like never before. The game also has a very funny sense of humor that will leave smiles on players' faces. So if you're ready to command your troops and conquer the battlefield in a fun, quirky game, rally your forces and dive into the chaos of General Chaos. Let's jump into the heart of urban jungle combat with Streets of Rage, a game that's synonymous with the beat-em-up genre and a defining title for the console. Developed and published by Sega in 1991, Streets of Rage is a side-scrolling beat-em-up that follows the journey of courageous fighters as they battle through the streets to defeat the criminal syndicate that controls the city. Streets of Rage is all about taking the fight to the streets and delivering justice one punch at a time. Players control one of 3 vigilante fighters, each with their own unique combat style and special moves, as they brawl their way through hordes of thugs and bosses. What sets Streets of Rage apart is its addictive gameplay and cooperative multiplayer mode. Whether you're going solo or teaming up with friends, the adrenaline-fueled action and responsive controls make every brawl feel like an epic showdown. Even playing the game today, it's incredibly responsive, fluid, and fast. The hit detection also excels and really gives a feeling of connecting with your enemies as players make their way through the game's 8 levels. Players can use offensive moves such as headbutts, reverse kicks, and backslams, as well as the environment occasionally providing weapons such as knives, baseball bats, and glass bottles that can be used to help dispatch your enemies. And let's not forget about the game's presentation. With its detailed character sprites, vibrant urban environments, and the incredible pulse-pounding soundtrack, which is one of the best on the system, Streets of Rage immerses players in a gritty world of crime and retribution. The game has memorable and imaginative bosses, though there was clearly some inspiration taken. Specifically, Stage 3's boss, which is a copy of WWF's Ultimate Warrior. Finally, the special moves are very memorable, with each player having a unique ability to call for police backup and wipe out a screen full of enemies. As mentioned for a few of these games on the list, this game is available on the Sega Genesis Classic Collection, which also has parts 2 and 3. So the game is easily accessible today. This game is not unknown and probably the most popular game on the list, but I feel it's truly underrated because any list of the best beat-em-up games usually only includes Part 2. So if you're ready to dish out some street justice and clean up the mean streets, grab a controller and join the fight in Streets of Rage. So there you have it, 10 underrated games from the system that I feel truly go under the radar. Let me know what you think. Are those games you have heard of? Or maybe there's some suggestions you have for me of games that I could play. As I mentioned in the video, there is the Sega Genesis Classics Collection that does have over 50 Genesis games. And as I said, Columns, Streets of Rage, and Gain Ground from the video are included in this compilation. This does go on sale quite a bit, the digital version on the Switch for $6, so if you get a chance, pick it up. But otherwise, again, let me know what were some of your favorites, and I truly think the Genesis is, without a doubt, one of the most underrated systems of all time. it seems to get overshadowed by the Super Nintendo quite a bit, and I'm sure there's others who feel the same way as I do. So, let me know what you think, and I thank you for your time, and I will see you next time.